Hi, I'm Boris Blade, and I'm the host of Strange But Harmless. Tonight we're going to talk about hunting night crawlers. Now, there are several parts making up the night crawler. I'm only concerned with two, the head and the tail. Growing up in small town Ohio in the 60s was cool. We were middle class, so to speak. We didn't have a lot of money, but Mom and Dad seemed to make it stretch pretty far. We all, that is to say, my dad, brothers, and friends, loved to fish. We would fish anywhere you could find water deep enough to come up to your waist. I make that reference because the closest place to fish was the creek. It was one of the starting tributaries to the Tuscarawas River. At some parts it was only inches deep, but never came past our waist in our part of it. I remember my dad telling me once that water running over rocks or pebbles would be clean enough to drink. I tested that theory once. It was a hot day, and I was cutting school around the fourth grade. I was roaming around the creek as I was wont to do as a lad. I was parched and needed cooling off. I came across a very shallow section of the creek where the water was only about 2 inches deep. It was running over a bed of smooth stones and small pebbles. I recalled Dad's advice. I knelt and scooped some water into my cupped hands. I smelled it. It smelled, well, like water. I scooped again and tasted a sip. It was cold and tasted good. I drank my fill. Maybe a little too much, truth be told, as my stomach could have attested to a few minutes later. I didn't know if the water had made me sick or what. I grabbed a few cool-looking stones from the water, shoved them in my pocket, and headed off to more wandering around the creek. Anyways, back to my main theme. We all fished whenever the opportunity presented itself, and bait was never cheap. Luckily, there was a bait shop that some guy opened in his garage just a block away, as the crow flies. He wasn't cheap, but in a pinch, you do what you have to do. You could raise them. We did for a while. We had an old clawfoot bathtub in the backyard. It was, after all, Barber-Tucky. Dad started looking for eggs in his containers when we bought crawlers. We half filled the tub with dirt and would throw the leftover worms and eggs in it after each fishing trip for a whole summer. The next summer we started using them. We used them with Dad, but only raided it once or twice for us kids, then only when I needed a few extra to augment what we had bought for the day before. So, Dad taught us boys how to catch night crawlers, or crawlers, and we taught the other kids. You say, what's to teach? Go out after rain and pick 'em up off the sidewalks. Yes, and you get a bunch of little earthworms and maybe a couple of decent-sized crawlers. But we wanted lots of crawlers, those big old juicy crawlers, and here's how you get them for free. Catching bait is easy once you know the secret. No, they're not ancient Chinese secrets, although, come to think of it, maybe they did discover these secrets. Who knows? Let's start with what my dad told me about night crawlers. They live in the ground, they live in tunnels. When it rains, their tunnel floods. They then come out on the sidewalk or in the grass to breathe. Now the truth. Night crawlers come to the surface during rain so that they can move over ground, migrate. The temporarily wet conditions give worms a chance to move safely and quicker than normal to new places. Also, worms breathe through their skin. The skin must stay wet in order for the oxygen to pass through it. In fact, worms can live several days in a fully submerged tunnel. They do not have eyes, but they have light and touch sensitive organs, receptor cells. These cells help them sense differences in light intensity and to feel vibrations in the ground. So back to hunting crawlers. It's best to hunt crawlers after dark following a good rain. No rain in days? That's okay. If you're hunting in your own yard, just soak your favorite hunting area down really good with a garden hose about an hour before sunset. What you need to succeed: a container, a medium brightness flashlight, a soft step, a steady but fast hand. Each of these are important in their own way. Shall we examine why? A container. To start, you need a container. An old coffee can will suffice. Half fill it with grass and leaves. Some people try holding the can and flashlight in one hand, leaving the other hand free for grabbing. All well and good until you come across two mating crawlers. I don't know about you, but I'm always up for a 2-for-1. I like to gently set the can on the ground in a likely area and work my way out and around it, keeping within tossing distance of the can. If you miss your toss, don't worry. You have a few minutes to retrieve the crawlers. Night crawlers usually do not come completely out of their tunnels, but simply rest on the surface with their tails still underground. This allows them to slip back in quickly when contracting their bodies if alarmed. Once you pull them away from their tunnel, they are pretty slow to run from you. Just try not to lose them in the grass if it's deep. A medium bright flashlight. This is required so you don't scare the crawlers away before you even get a chance to get near them. Turn on your flashlight. Scan the ground ahead of you with your light as you proceed in a hunched over posture. If you stand erect, you lose precious time having to bend over once you spot the crawler, and the worm can sense the light and go quickly down its hole. Look for any reflection of the light on the moist bodies of the crawlers. Shine your light away from the crawler once you spot it. I like to lay my flashlight gently on the ground pointing near my prey. I read that those headlamps can work for a hands-free hunt. I don't know how well the LED ones would work, being that they're so bright. A light step. Walk softly so you don't create vibrations that will alert the worms to your presence, thus chasing them back into their holes. As stated before, crawlers have light and touch-sensitive organs. If you trudge around like Godzilla, you will likely never even see a crawler. No need to tiptoe or anything like that, but step softly. A fast and steady hand. Once you spot a crawler, you must be quick. Just a stiff breeze blowing across the grass could spook them. Using your thumb and first two fingers, quickly grab the worm as close to the hole as possible. If you can't determine where the hole is, your best option is to grab the crawler by the thickest end. Some people favor the full fist grab. I find it clumsy at best. I've used it though for mating crawlers on occasion. If the crawler is all the way free of its hole, you'll have no problem catching it. If it's still partly in its hole and grabs tight, you can extract it by using a gentle, steady tension on the crawler. This will extract the worm from the hole without breaking it. It may take a few seconds, but you will feel when the crawler releases his grip on the hole. Refrain from pulling hard, as this will break the crawler in half. Dad taught us boys a method to help with this. Laugh if you want, scoff if you will, but it works. Crawler tickling. As you keep a steady pull on the crawler, reach in with your other hand, this is but one reason for laying the flashlight down, and tickle the crawler's belly. Which side of the crawler is the belly, you may ask? It doesn't matter, just tickle the damn thing. It never failed me. As soon as I started lightly rubbing the crawler, I'd feel the body relax. I got to where I could do it one-handed, tickling the crawler with my pinky finger. It never failed me. As soon as I feel the body relax, lo and behold, I had it. Put the night crawler in your container and continue. Mating crawlers. Usually when you run across two crawlers mating, you should apologize and quickly tiptoe away, right? Not. In most cases, only one of the mating crawlers are still partially in their hole. Most people try to quickly determine which one is in its hole. Now there are two trains of thought here. Some will grab the one that is away from home, being the easier prey. Others will try for the homeboy, figuring that since the other one is not by its hole, once they get this one, they can then pick the other one easily off the ground. Oftentimes it happens that while the mate may not have its tail in its hole per se, they're not far from it and will get to it first while you're tickling their mate. I used to try to grab in the middle of the two, thus getting both of them. It is possible, but not a great way to go. Here's another reason for having both hands free. I like to grab one in each hand for the 2-for-1. Having mastered the one-handed tickle with both hands helps for those rare occasions when both have their tails in their holes. Where to look? In the yard, duh. No, really, tall grass is counterproductive. It's difficult to see your prey. If you have freshly cut grass, it's much better, especially if the grass catcher was used or if the yard was raked. Short, unencumbered grass is best. Under bushes is good. It's a little drier and the crawler seems to like that. They are easier to see, but getting to them without spooking them is a challenge. Under pine trees is good because there is usually an area below the lowest boughs, fancy name for branches, that is drier than in the grass. Again, be careful getting to them. Stories. I remember trying to teach our next-door neighbor's youngest girl to catch crawlers. She was a little older than my sister, I believe. It was fun and funny all at the same time. She did good right up until she broke her first one and got worm guts on her hand. Don't laugh too hard. She did good for a girl of about 9 or 10. We always tried to include the girls in our exploits, as they included us in their fun. Us boys joined them in rousing games of jacks for the whole summer. We occasionally joined the girls in jumping rope. A couple of us younger boys got pretty good at double dutch. One time, some guys from another neighborhood came in to fish with us. They didn't bring any bait, and it had poured pretty hard a couple hours prior to dusk. We grabbed our flashlights and proceeded to catch some bait. They seemed impressed by our skills. We didn't show them how to do it. Let them figure it out on their own. They got the basic idea just watching us. Then we had a couple of dozen. We went fishing. There were times we would make a game of it. Whoever caught the least worms had to perform a truth or dare type punishment. Nothing too severe, maybe lick a crawler, maybe kiss your sister on the cheek, of course. Of course, you'd have to chase her down because it was as much of a punishment for her as it was for you. Once, a bunch of us were hunting in my front yard. It always seemed to have an abundance of crawlers for some reason. Anyway, my sister let our dog out, and that just killed our worm hunt for the night. He followed us anywhere we went. I think my sister did it on purpose because we wouldn't let her go with us. She was 5 years my junior, and us guys didn't want any little girls ruining our fishing trip. Well, the joke was on us. There were times we would be night fishing at the creek and would run out of bait. Once or twice we took our lights and went hunting in the yards close to our fishing spot. We tried that once in the local lakes area and ended up talking to the cops for our trouble. He saw us in someone's yard at 2 a.m. and knew that we obviously didn't belong. He pulled in the driveway and waved us to his car. Luckily, he didn't turn on his flashing lights. That would have been embarrassing. It was 2 a.m. and the bars were just letting out down the street. The best hunt I can recall was once we had decided to risk going downtown to night fish at the local lake. Night fishing really wasn't allowed there, but if you were quiet and picked up the trash, the cops would leave you alone. Of course, they knew you were there. The lake was across the street from the police station. Why the risk? Well, we didn't have any luck hunting crawlers in our neighborhood, so we hoped to pick some up under the trees at the lake. We did so good we lost track of time and never did get much fishing done by the time we realized how late it was. The catfish had quit biting, and all we caught were a couple of small bluegills. But we kicked ass in worms. We counted over 4 dozen when we got home. We fished for a whole week on them. Well, that's the end of that. I'm Boar's Blade, and as always, I'm strange but harmless.